He was told by the dealer that this pin can't be fixed without replacing the harness. Hold my beer. Hey guys, welcome back. This isn't a diagnostic video so much as a venting / informational video, I guess. In any case, I'm driving home. It's Saturday. Had a car come in the other day. New customer was recommended to us from a local place, and kind of an interesting story I thought I'd share for what it's worth. It's a 2011 Honda Accord EX 3.5 liter V6 automatic. Car came in after the customer had just bought this vehicle 2 months ago from a local Honda dealer, as a matter of fact, as a used car. When he got the car, he noticed, in this kid's defense, he's a younger kid that does not know anything, as he said, about cars. Okay, he just needed something to get from A to B to be reliable and be able to get back and forth to work. So he went and bought himself a used car with an extended or aftermarket warranty sold through the dealer. And basically, the car, when he was driving it, right off the bat, didn't feel right to him. But he said, I really didn't know much of it. I don't know anything about cars. I thought it was just normal the way the car was. And I asked him to explain a little bit if he can, or show me what it's doing. And he said it hits really hard when you put it in gear, and it doesn't do it all the time, but it does it most of the time when you go into drive. And sometimes as you're driving, he said, before you come to a stop, it feels like it bangs and just doesn't act right. And he brought it back to the dealer a couple of days after he got it, because the check engine light, ABS light, or traction light rather, had come on, and tire pressure monitor light had come on. When he brought it back, they checked it, and they told him that a connector's bad and he needs a wiring harness. They can't fix it, without changing the entire harness on the car. So he took it out of there because they didn't want to cover that, I guess. Apparently that wasn't something covered under this warranty, which, red flags all over the place here, right? In any case, he gets the car. He gets the car to me, and I, had him leave it. I checked it. I tried to deal with the warranty company, who were virtually useless to deal with. They had me on the phone for about 45 minutes, wasting my time, because what I did first was scan test the car, pulled codes. Codes were for throttle position errors, PO 123, 223, and a 2135, I believe, which is a correlation code for the TPS. So aside from that, it also had a P0767 in it, which is never a good sign for a trans solenoid D. We'll get to that though. So the thing that I did was I wanted to look up service information on the trans code, and sure enough, that code will not set if a PO123 is set. So it is not, the PO123 is not the cause of that code setting, which I thought may be the case because an input to the trans or what have you. It's not the case. So that is a separate issue for sure. I drove tested the car, and I felt exactly what he's talking about. Sometimes you'll put it in drive and it will not even go into gear immediately. It will take 10 seconds, no exaggeration, before it will slam into gear when it's in drive. And then on decel, you will feel the slamming into gear as well. So with that said, I called the company about this, and see how they want to proceed. I explained to them that, I scanned it, I road tested it. It absolutely has multiple problems. Do you want to pay for diagnosis? How are we working this? Because I don't want to get burned between them and the customer. And they told me it depends. And it was just, I'm not even going to go into it because it was just a long, drawn out bunch of bull. I ended up talking to the customer directly. They may or may not cover diagnostics. They may or may not cover the repairs. How should I proceed? Because I need your okay to do this, because if they don't cover it, you're going to have to. So he says, absolutely. He says, I want to know what we got to do. And okay, so I had done a visual inspection, which I told the customer, and the visual inspection was very obvious, the fault with at least the TPS. The harness was broke at the connector, one wire broken right at the connector and pulled off of the pin, separated from the pin. And this is what the dealer was talking about. They told him, because he said to me, the dealer told me that, but they said that pin can't be fixed or replaced. You have to change the entire harness in the car. Crock of you know what. So I says, leave it here. Let me see if I could find a pin for this and see if I could fix it. And of all things, I have a Ford harness laying around in the shop from something, and I found a pin that correlates, with what I needed. So in this old Ford harness, I was able to dig up a pin in one of the connectors that actually worked with the vehicle in question here, with the Honda. I had to modify the pin slightly because the lock mechanism is a little different. This had a lock that stuck up on the pin out of the Ford. The other one has a drilled hole in the pin for the lock to positively activate from the connector. So not a big deal. I was able to find the size I needed, the drill bit, drilled it, fit it, made sure everything is good retention wise and everything is perfect. So I cut the pigtail, obviously. I soldered the new wire in to the original existing wiring harness and fixed that. Now this harness was tampered with previously, so this was common knowledge. There was a problem here. They had a piece of aftermarket wire taped in and spliced together. It was a mess. In any case, I fixed that. I cleared the codes. I had no more issues with the throttle inputs, and I figured, let me road test the car again. Drove much better, aside from the fact that the trans is slamming into gear. The 767 has not returned yet. I only road tested it once so far. I believe it's 2 trips, although it should have set a pending code, which it hasn't yet. What I believe is wrong is the filter that's internal to the trans on this is clogged, and that is causing the problem. The fluid is completely burnt. I pulled the dipstick. This thing is going to need a trans more likely than not. So I don't know if they cover this. If they don't, we're gonna have to go further, I guess, at that point. But the point of this video is more along the lines of this. I'm just giving you background on what I've done and what we've seen and what the customer has been dealing with. This is a 2-month-old purchase. Okay, it's not a 2-month-old car. It's an 11, but the purchase was done 2 months ago at a dealership. That car should be covered, at least for some point in time, for anything major. And before it was sold off the lot, anything that should have needed attention should have been taken care of before they sold this vehicle, safety-wise. Here's what's burning me with this thing. When I first looked at the car, I do a visual inspection on cars when they come in, just look around them quick, see if my eye catches anything that I don't like. The tires on this car are completely shot to hell. There's nothing left. There's no tread left on the car, on any of the tires. They're down to below the point of where the test would be done. Okay, the little humps in the tire in between the grooves, if you guys aren't familiar, are there for testing the depth of the thread. These things are gone. They're baloney skins. There's nothing. They're not. The car's not safe. When I road tested it, when I road tested this thing, it was horrendous to drive 20 miles an hour because the car's doing this. It's all over the place. It wants to basically steer itself. So completely unsafe in every regard to drive that car with bad tires like that. Probably needs brake work. The suspension needs attention. I made a rhyme. When you're driving it, you could hear all sorts of banging and clunking and such. So it definitely needs some sort of attention to the suspension. It's got 79,000 miles on it, for anybody that's curious. The car was obviously not well maintained. Fluids weren't done. Such things like that, as much as they should have been. Virtually, all of this little stuff that adds up and kicks you in the ass later, is what the guy is dealing with now after just buying the car. This should have never happened because the car, being from a dealership, should have been attended to before they sold it. especially with major issues like a transmission slamming into gear. I mean, they know that the trans is bad. If you road tested the car or moved the car, most likely you would felt the problem, because it does it more often than not. So what I don't really understand is how a dealership could charge you upwards of 12 grand for a car with an aftermarket warranty that they sell you and all this other crap, so that you're covered and you're safe, and then tell you that it's impossible to fix a harness, and it's in, they don't know about any of the other stuff and this and that, and yet they're going to put you in a vehicle that's unsafe to drive for 12 grand. This kid, said he should have brought somebody with him to check it, but he figured it's buying it from, he went to a dealer because he figured that he wouldn't have any kind of issues with dealing with an independent person that might arise. Like, sometimes a guy you're buying off of the street, he's going to cover up problems or try to lie to you and, whatever. Like, you know what I mean? It happened to me when I bought my Jeep. The guy tried to tell me that the car, the truck is fine. It just has a little misfire because it's an ignition problem. And I never mentioned to him what I do for a living. So when I went to check the car, when I went to check the truck, it had no rust on it of significance. It was very, very clean, aside from the inside, which is a mess because it was used for work. Silly little cosmetic things that I could care less about as long as mechanically it's sound. So he wanted, I don't know, 2 grand or 3 grand or whatever he wanted for the truck. And what I found when I went out there was it had a miss, and I could hear it cranking in the cadence on the crank, that it had an in-cylinder issue of some sort, which made me a little upset because, first of all, the guy was trying to play me, which, he was just trying to make some money out of the deal. And, then he basically lied straight to my face and said, it probably needs a tune-up or something. And he didn't realize he was getting played right back, because I popped the hood on it, and I noticed that it had... Because, I popped the hood on it, and he didn't realize, that I actually knew what I was doing. So I took a look around real fast, and I noticed it had new cap, rotor, plugs, wires, basically everything in the secondary ignition was done. And I said to him, all right, let's cut to the chase. I drove it. Aside from the extreme misfire, it drove fine. Everything worked, four-wheel drive, all the accessories, everything in the truck, AC. So I wanted to be fair with him, but I didn't want to get screwed. And I told him, I said, 3 grand for this truck is far too much. I said, it's not in the best of shape cosmetically, which I'm not too concerned with, but, let's face it, the truck is, ratty. But it's solid otherwise, aside from the engine. And I said, it does have a misfire. And I said, you're lying to me because you said you're telling me that it's an ignition miss or it's this and that. And I said, it's quite apparent to me from cranking it that it's got an internal engine issue. And he kind of looked at me like for a second, and he was about to, I guess, rebut my statement. And I said, look, I forgot to mention before, when I talked to you on the phone, that I'm a specialist with diagnostics and drivability. And, I said, even if I wasn't, it's pretty obvious you're lying to me because somebody already tried to tune this up. And, I said, at least they use original OE stuff. That's nice, but I'm not going to fix a broken engine. So the guy kind of looked at me, and he was like, oh, I work for Chrysler and whatever. And I was like, well, that's nice, but your boys at Chrysler obviously told you what's wrong with it. That's why you're selling it. Or they didn't know what was wrong with it, and they just told you they don't know and get rid of it, buy something new. So whatever the case is, it's got an internal engine issue. So he says, oh, well, I know there's something else going on, and, I'm just trying to make a few dollars. I was like, I'm not the guy to make a few dollars off of it, and it's kind of scummy. So I says, I don't know what you want to do, but I said, I'm willing to give you this amount for the truck. I have to put my own amount into it to fix it. Do you want to sell it, or do you want to try to find a sucker? And he kind of looked at me, and he was like, all right, it's yours. So that was that. We worked out a deal. I was happy. He was happy. I fixed the engine. Needed a head, if you didn't guess. It needed to be rebuilt. And that was that. So this kid, unfortunately, didn't have the ability to do that. He didn't know what he was looking at. And, it's not his fault that he doesn't know what he's looking at. He's not mechanically inclined, maybe, or that's not his thing. And cars aren't, whatever. He doesn't know what to look for. That doesn't mean he should be taken advantage of. And, you know, we get guys every day hear about how mechanics suck and we're scumbags and we're rip-off artists and we rob everybody. We charge more for parts than what we pay for them. Yeah, we're running a business. We have to make a few bucks. And, oh, why is the labor this much? Well, because that's, you know, the overhead is this much. So we have to be able to stay in business to work on your cars. It is what it is. I mean, nothing's free. But to be all out, you know, to talk about mechanics like that, and then you have these places that are multi-billion-dollar corporations or multi-million-dollar corporations or whatever they are, to rob people blind that are hard-working people that are going to, you know, that need a car to get to work and back, and take their families wherever they got to go or whatever, and be reliable, and lie right to their face and take their $12,000 and laugh at them as they walk out the door, and do nothing when they come back complaining that the car has a problem. And it's a legit problem. It's not like the guy came back and said, oh, I didn't see this scratch on the paint. You know what I'm saying? This is legit. Like, you can't drive the car. You can't rely on the car. You paid 12 grand for a paperweight. It just burns me, man. It just burns me. And, you know, it's a local dealership. They suck. Like all the local dealerships around here suck. You know, getting any kind of help from these guys around here after you make a purchase is basically like pulling teeth, you know what I mean? That's why in one of my videos I told you guys I went to for my wife's car, we went to a dealership that's 65 miles away from us because I don't trust the dealers here and they won't even help you. So, you know, it was a different world going out there. They took care of us. The vehicle was fixed. It's still fixed. And if something goes wrong with it, I mean, I know, you know, that's a whole other story with that car with the trans, but the vehicle is working as advertised right now. The dealer did the right thing for me. They respected the fact that I knew what was wrong with the car, and you know, they didn't question anything like the one around here did. Started telling me that the car's probably misfiring and it's not a trans issue. Yeah, so you know what I mean. But the point that I'm trying to make is, if you go to a dealership because you're looking for some sort of sanctuary or whatever, where, you know, you're going to be safe because you bought a car from a dealer on a used car lot, be careful, because they pull just as much crap at a dealership as the guy that's a private owner may pull, or even more sometimes, because they have the ability. They could they'll shut the check engine light off, clear the codes. They'll clean the car up real nice and have it detailed and make it look all pretty, and they will screw you with the car. So if you're going to buy a car from a dealer, make sure that you do go through it. If it's a used vehicle, obviously, make sure that you do go through that vehicle with a fine-tooth comb before you buy it. And if you don't know enough about what to look for a used vehicle, ask your mechanic. See if he'll go, if he's local to the dealership, see if he'll go with you and take a look at the car for you. If you're a good customer and, whatever, I mean, I've done it for people. If you have to travel, I mean, if the guy has to travel a little bit, if it's going to take some time out of his day, throw him some money, you know what I mean? Ask him how much you want. Because that, whatever little amount of money he's going to ask you for to do that, he's going to bring a scan tool with him. He's going to be able to check the car over, request that it's put on a lift if he's, if he's able to do that at the dealership, which they should do for you. Check it underneath, check it for any kind of obvious accident damage that they may not have reported. Basically go through the car for you. And if he's going to pick up on all this stuff, I mean, myself, if I had gone with this kid, which I obviously couldn't, I didn't know him, but I know myself, or any of you guys that are out there that are inclined, would have gone and seen this car, you would have told them, don't buy anything from this place because they're trying to take advantage of you. And that would have been the end of it. And, that's just my opinion, but that's what I would do if I didn't know anything about what I was buying. I would have somebody that did know come and inspect it for me, and at least verify and give me at least the best advice he could on what I'm doing. So we're gonna move forward and see what happens with the car from here. I hope, because at this point I think he really wants to get his money back from these guys, because it looks like they may cover the repair that I did, but in the grand scheme of things, this thing needs a transmission, it needs tires, it needs other work. If they're not going to cover all that and make this car right for him, he wants to get a different car. So he's very, very easy to work with. He's very respectable. and respectful, and all he wants is to be treated right. So I mean, that's not, you can't ask for more than that. You know what I mean? And I don't blame the kid. You know, hopefully they work with him and take care of this car for him so it's a reliable vehicle. He certainly paid enough money for it, so he deserves that much. Guys, sorry for the rant. If it was a rant, it really wasn't. Just kind of an eye-opener for you guys that might be out there that think that you're not going to get ripped off at a dealership. You will get ripped off at a used car dealership, and this is a new car dealership that sells used cars too, so you'll get ripped off regardless. You know, just be careful what you buy, and be careful before you buy. Being in this situation kind of sucks now, because now he's kind of, I mean, I don't know if he's at their mercy so much. I mean, the kid could go out and get a freaking lawyer and, you know, and really, you know, put some heat on these guys and report them to Better Business Bureau and all that stuff, because, again, you know, he took photos of everything, you know, all the stuff that's obvious, tires, the broken harness, the repair that I did, you know, all that stuff. So, I mean, he could definitely put some heat on them for selling a car that's unsafe. That's not something that, you know, that's not good for business. So, I mean, you know, today with social media, he could post it up online and, you know, start posting it locally and all that stuff, and people start seeing it. Yeah, they start losing business. So, you know, your rep is kind of on the line now, man. You're selling something. You know, you're selling something to a customer, and it's really not up to safety standards in any way. So, not the way I would do business. But hope you guys got something out of this. It's the weekend. I didn't have a whole lot of stuff that I thought was worth filming, honestly. So I thought I would make a quick video. Well, not quick, but, you know, a 20-minute video on what I thought about this particular car that came in the other day. And I feel bad for the kid, because he really didn't do anything wrong in here. So did our part, I guess, try to help him as best I can. And hopefully it all works out in the end. So that's really it, guys. I'm just going to go inside, relax, try to enjoy what's left of the weekend, have a sandwich, maybe do some machining. You guys leave a comment, like, share, subscribe. You know the drill. I'll see you on the next one. Later.